Welcome to the What Works Speakers Series. My name is Astrid Gagne. I'm part of the alumni team here over at SAIT, and I'm excited to have you join us for this evening's conversation. Please note, this is being recorded to share with those who were unable to join live. We acknowledge that SAIT is situated on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy. The city of Calgary encompasses a region that the Blackfoot tribes of southern Alberta describe as Mohkinstsis, meaning elbow, in reference to its location at the confluence of the Bow and Elbow rivers. This region was a traditional gathering place for the tribes of the Blackfoot Confederacy. The Blackfoot Confederacy encompasses the Indigenous people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, including the Siksika, the Piikani, the Kainai, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda First Nations, and the Northwest Métis Homeland Region 3. The What Works Speakers Series was developed in response to the feedback we received from you, SAIT alumni. The focus of this series is on career development, industry connection, and how SAIT can be a lifelong partner in both your education and career. This evening, I'd like to introduce our panelists: Carol House, Vice President, PetroLMI; Nicholas Newnes, Talent Specialist with Calgary Economic Development; and Erin Boyle, a Manager of Career Advancement Services here at SAIT. If you have questions specific to the content throughout the hour, please use the Q&A tool. And please note, you can post your questions anonymously if you do prefer. I want to just quickly brush over why we're doing this session on labor market information. It can be useful for you if you're planning your next career moves. Essentially, economic and labor market data can help paint a picture of the future of particular jobs and trends. And those trends can help you pivot or tweak your own journey to best align your skills with what we know is going to be needed in the future. So if you're seeking out a bit of a roadmap on how careers might change, this session's for you. With that, I would like to pass it on to Nicholas Newnes with Calgary Economic Development, who is going to give us an overview of the future of Calgary's labor market. Nicholas?
Awesome, thank you, Astrid. Just gonna share my screen here quickly. There we go. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Awesome, thanks, Astrid. So good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'll be honest, I wasn't exactly sure how much granular level of detail you're looking for today. So I've kind of put together a mix of both high level and also very heavy stats. So I hope this spurs some good conversation and helps you in your thought process going here. Just to begin, I wanted to share that the vision we have for Calgary here. We see Calgary as the city of choice for smart people like yourselves, to embrace technology and create solutions for some of the world's greatest challenges. These include cleaner energy, safer and secure food, the improved movement of goods and people, and of course, especially over this past year, better health solutions. These are the key sectors we've identified as right to win sectors. So that means we have the people, the knowledge, the resources, to be world leaders in these sectors. We've got agriculture, where we've had a long history of innovation in this area, and now adding technology to make it not just more efficient, but also more sustainable. Energy and the environment, where we are showing the world we're not just about oil and gas anymore, but actually rank in the top 15 of the world's clean tech ecosystems. And you'll hear much more about this sector from Carol shortly. Transportation and logistics, where our geographical location and expertise in supply chain have made us Western Canada's distribution hub. Aerospace and defense, that's from drones to global positioning systems to aircraft to R&D. It's not really a super well-known area here in Calgary, but there's lots of really cool things happening in this space. Financial services, especially seeing a lot of growth in the fintech sector over the last few years, with a number of major acquisitions, investments, and disruptions happening across things like payment tech, blockchain, cybersecurity, banking, etc. And interactive digital media and creative industries, from AR, VR, MR to gaming, film, and TV. This is a sector that's really booming in Calgary right now. And if any of you were trying to get into the downtown core today, you saw that one of those bridges was blocked off. they were doing filming there. We recently commissioned a study that found industries across Alberta will be spending about $20 billion through 2024 on digital transformation. Now, this is important because watching where the money is going to help inform you as to where the opportunities are going to be. You can see this transcends all sectors and kind of manifests in different ways, but it's important to remember that when you think about tech, it's not just the Facebooks, Apples, Googles of the world, but this also overlays all sectors. So a lot of the strong and more traditional industries we have here in the province as well. Another good indicator of economic growth is venture capital funding. In this study, having identified over 3,000 companies in the province, we were able to see record-breaking investment even throughout a crazy year of uncertainty. And from 2019 to 2020, there was 51 deals made, and that's a 100% increase in investments year over year. Some of these notable ones on here, you may be recognizing them if you've paid attention to the news in the last little bit. And most recently, and not on this slide yet, but Neo Financial, who recently closed their $64 million Series B. But you can also see here how these investments aren't concentrated in one industry, but it's spread across all kinds of different areas. Now, the reason why Calgary is so successful and quickly growing our innovation ecosystem here is because we work really closely together and are very collaborative. So you can see some examples of how all levels of government, venture capital, accelerators, incubators, post-secondaries, and industry all come together to help raise the tide here in Calgary. As of 2021, we have about 120,000 people working in some form of tech. So like 46K in like technical roles, 78K in non-tech, sales, operations, marketing, etc. And growth in technology roles is outpacing the rest of the economy about 6-1. So again, a lot of opportunities coming down the road here. And with 9,000 plus STEM graduates coming out of post-secondaries, we are really well positioned to fill the future pipeline that's required. However, there's still a lot of gaps that remain right now, and companies are moving really fast and needing to fill roles today. Might be kind of hard to see this slide here, but it's a snapshot of a lot of the tech-focused companies here in Calgary. So contrary to my last slide, these are primarily tech companies, whereas the last slide was kind of tech roles in general. So these are companies where their primary source of revenue is through some kind of intellectual property, software, hardware, whatnot. The goal we want to achieve here in this space is to grow both jobs and companies about 4-fold over the next 10 years. Here are some top tech skills by program completions. However, I think what you're probably more interested in and what's more important for you is the demand for these types of skills. So unfortunately, I didn't make a slide for this, but I did pull a scan of the last 12 months of job postings in Calgary and area that were asking for tech skills, and kind of doing a quick scan over 70,000 plus postings. The top 5 kind of languages that are in demand are SQL, so SQL, SQL, JavaScript, Java, Python, and C#. Now, of course, that's going to vary depending on industry, company, what kind of tech stack they're looking at, but that should give you a pretty competitive position if you're strong at, kind of 2 or 3 of those languages there. If you're just starting out, however, my recommendation would definitely be take a look at Python or JavaScript, but that really depends on what you want to do and what you need to do. There's tons of videos on YouTube that you can check out that kind of breaks down all these languages and compares them. Here's some of the salaries you can expect to make on average. This might be interesting there. This does not include things like ESOP, so like shares and equities that a lot of companies might give you. That's always going to be a strong perk. You may make less in terms of salary now, but for potential huge payout in the future. So that's something that is really exciting and is very common, especially in your startups and scale-ups in the tech sector. Now, you all know where Calgary is, I would hope, but our YYC airport here has flights out to 140 destinations. That's 85 plus direct routes into Asia, Europe, and the Americas. So it's really important for business, maybe in a more normal world, of course, but this does make us a strong business hub as well. Here we're referred to, as I mentioned, as Western Canada's distribution hub, because in adding in that ground transportation as well, with trucking and rail and stuff, we get access to about 11 million plus customers in a typical trucking day. And the other thing we're called is a headquarter center. And the reason for this is because we have the highest concentration of head offices in Canada per capita. So lots of decisions are made here, and there's lots of opportunity for you to be a part of that also. So if you're doing your own business or even just needing to access these decision makers, it's much easier to do so. And that whole Calgarian hospitality thing isn't just a myth. I know both from experience and also speaking with a lot of companies that doors really open much easier here in Calgary than in any other cities around Canada and even around the world. And of course, I had to throw this in. And most of us know that we have a great quality of life here. And yes, I have stats for this too. For 10 years, we were ranked the #1 city to live in all of North America. If that's not impressive enough for you, we were also ranked within the top 5 in the entire world. And this comes from high scores in things like safety, healthcare, climate. If you think about where you want to live, as well, not just the work aspects, these are also incredibly important factors to consider. And to balance things like your purchasing power, your affordability with the kind of quality of life you want to have. You can have that here, and it's really hard to consider moving to another jurisdiction. You can kind of see the comparisons there and kind of no competition there, I think. We also know we have low taxes here, but really how low is low? It's actually the 4th lowest out of 100 plus global cities. And again, as for businesses, if you're starting a business or, thinking about businesses that are coming and setting up here, there's no payroll tax or healthcare premiums, and we have the lowest corporate income tax rate in Canada. So definitely a very business-friendly city. And yeah, all that great disposable income and having a very affordable lifestyle allows you to consider doing more interesting things with life and not, worrying about rent and mortgage too much. For a household in Calgary of about 2 people to afford an average home, each person really only needs to be making about $50,000. And also a very important thing, we are very diverse here. It's been proven time and time again that diversity brings vibrancy and unique ways of thinking, both culturally and professionally. So we are really proud to have 240 plus different ethnic origins in the city and hear over 120 different languages spoken on our streets. So yeah, that was just a really quick overview, some industry things, some lifestyle things, kind of an overview around Calgary. Hopefully it wasn't too much too little, but I know we can chat further on this. But really quickly, if what I was saying is resonating with you, I just wanted to kind of plug how you can get plugged in and learn a bit more. We have this website called livetechlovelife.com. Would encourage you to go check out that website. If you kind of scroll down just a little bit, there's a thing that says view jobs in tech, I believe. On that page, there's 80 plus different companies listed, all based in or operating out of Calgary, all looking to hire. So, if you want to check out those opportunities, that's a great place to get started. We have info on that website about upcoming career fairs. There's blogs from companies and just a good amount of resources for you to check out and learn more about the tech scene here in Calgary. There's also an Instagram account, also called Live Tech Love Life, that you can follow. And we have local tech companies doing takeovers each week of that account. So you can follow them out, check out their cultures, see what cool, innovative things they're working on. So once again, livetechlovelife.com. And this is part of our wider marketing campaign to kind of showcase to folks here in Calgary and everywhere that Calgary is truly a place where you can do industry disrupting work while also enjoying an unparalleled quality of life. So thanks so much for this opportunity and your attention, for listening to me just ramble on. But I look forward to the discussions to follow.
Thanks, Nicholas. That was excellent. Makes me very happy that I live here, actually, just being reminded of what our mountains look like. I want to just encourage everyone, if you have questions, we're going to go into our next presentation from Carol, but if you have questions for Nicholas or Carol or Erin, just put them into the Q&A and we will get to them and get into the conversation once we've gone through the presentations and have crunched some of the numbers. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Carol House now with PetroLMI.
Thanks very much. Sorry, of course, as soon as I do this, my phone goes off. I apologize. There we go. I gotta turn that off. So first of all, thank you all very much for having me here. I'm delighted to participate in this conversation. It's a really important conversation for all of us, especially as Nicholas mentioned, we're embarking on a lot of new things in Calgary and Alberta going forward. So the opportunity to really explore what this means for an education and for students moving forward into their careers is just so vital right now. So I'd like to start just to telling you a little bit about who we are. So if we can flip to the next slide here, I'll explain to you a little bit more. So PetroLMI is short for Petroleum Labour Market Information. And obviously labor market data and statistics are really vital to what we do. So we'll certainly talk about that a little bit more, but just to give you a little bit more background on our purpose and what our goals are as an organization. We are a division of Energy Safety Canada. Energy Safety Canada does the health and safety training for the oil and gas industry. But our particular division really focuses on developing and supporting a workforce for the oil and gas industry. Actually, it's not the oil and gas industry anymore, it's the energy industry. And that's really vitally important distinction because the world is changing, our industry is changing, and we are actually changing as an organization in terms of what we focus on for jobs and opportunities for the labor market. So we develop resources and tools to support providing labor market information. We provide information on career planning. We provide profiles of more than 170 career occupations. So many tools and resources that you need to look at when you're trying to develop a new career, change careers, understand where the industry is going. And we are probably, well, we are the only one in Canada that really focuses on the energy industry across Canada, and particularly the oil and gas industry. But as I said, we're broadening now into other sources of energy, and I'll talk about that in a second. So we want to go to the next slide. I'm giving you a little bit of a sneak preview, actually. Well, it's not even really a sneak preview because it is live now, but to the point I was just making, we have a website which was called Careers in Oil and Gas. And as of 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, we just relaunched the website to become Careers in Energy for the very reason I mentioned. The reason being is that we recognize that with the transition in the energy industry, many of you who might be interested in working in oil and gas will now be looking at a much broader sector in terms of career opportunities going forward. And this new website, obviously careersinenergy.ca, if you're interested in going to take a look at it, really does provide a lot of added elements that we're very proud of that will help to develop, help to support career development. We in this website, on this new website, we obviously have our labor market reports and our labor market data, which again, I'll speak about in a minute, but we also really have some interesting new tools that you can use if you want to develop a career, perhaps in clean tech or in renewables, and how to do that. It really helps to guide someone through a career planning who may have some skills in certain areas that they don't know if it fits into some of these new energy sources. So we have these tools that can actually help you learn how to do that and really determine where the new jobs are of the future, and where you have the skills and where maybe skills gaps you have that you need to fill in that journey. We have a podcast called Not Your Grandpa's Energy Industry, which really sort of speaks to how the energy industry is changing, which I host, by the way, which my kids all thought was pretty cool that I actually hosted a podcast. So, but it's really been a lot of fun and really interesting, focused on interviewing people who are working in the industry and are working on very unique and different careers. So I think you'd enjoy that if you found that was of value. We also have day in the lives, talking about what some of these careers look like. The profiles of these careers include the salary expectations, the training, the skills that are required. So it certainly provides a lot of information in that regard. So to the point that Astrid made at the very beginning, labor market information and data can really help supplement a lot of these other career planning tools. And if we go to the next slide, I'll start to talk a little bit about that. On the website, we have a number of different pieces of information with regards to data and reports and insight reports. So you can, as I say, you can have a look at all of those individually. But on a monthly basis, and this is probably pretty key, if you're interested in looking at where the employment is going in the oil and gas industry, energy industry, we have the labor force survey data that on a monthly basis. And that's really important because many of you probably heard that every month, the province, the country releases labor force data information, but it's usually generally at a very broad level. We have really focused our information on the key areas of employment in the oil and gas industry, and that is exploration and production companies, pipeline companies, and the services sector, because these are the three key areas that really support the energy industry in Alberta in particular and Canada in general. There are many other industries that support the labor force and the industry in Canada, but these are specifically direct jobs in the oil and gas industry. So we focus on these. And by watching these trends, you can really understand where the employment is growing, where it's shrinking, and more importantly, where the opportunities might be. Because if any of you are familiar with labor force data information, you're looking at the labor force, you're looking at employment, and the difference between the two will tell you whether there's a tight labor force, whether there's not enough people to fill the jobs, or we're overabundance of people in the industry. So again, really good gauge on understanding how the industry is doing. This is a snapshot from our website, and you can see that in the last few months, fortunately, we've started to see some improvement happening in the oil and gas industry. In fact, we're actually seeing a shortage of workers in the services sector in the oil and gas industry, something we haven't seen for quite some time. Again, I'll talk about that in a little bit. So if we go to the next page. So as I mentioned, one area of the website talks about the data, the labor force data. And this is also a dashboard that has developed from our labor market outlook. So we also do longer term projections. And this is speaking again to what Astrid mentioned, which is really understanding what the labor force requirements are going to be in the next 2, 5, 10 years. Looking further out what the opportunities might be and where the jobs need to be filled. What the occupations will be, because they are changing and they're different than they used to be in the past. At one time, we did a 10-year outlook. Then we moved it down to a 5-year outlook. And the last two we did were 2-year outlooks. And the reason for that was because the industry has been so volatile in the last number of years. It is almost impossible to predict what's going to happen next year or the year after in this current environment, let alone 10 years out. And we didn't find that it was particularly valuable, especially to students or to educational institutions who are trying to understand how to prepare students for the future. So this last one was 2 years. We do hope next year to go back to a 5-year outlook, because studies show that that's really probably the best outlook for students, particularly to be able to understand where the market is going. So again, on the website, it really provides you some information on our outlook. Our outlook, this one we produced last year, it would be fair to say, generally speaking, we can look back and see how we've done. We use a modeling system to determine what the outlook will look like for the labor market in the industry. And it's fair to say that, generally speaking, for the last number of them, we've been fairly close, or at least it has been a good predictor of where the industry is going. Not so much this past one. It wasn't bad, but when we look at the numbers for this year, no one predicted the level of an activity that's happening in the oil and gas industry in the last few months, when we started to look at the research on this just 6 or 8 months ago. So we're seeing an improvement in the services sector in particular that we didn't anticipate, or it's certainly exceeding what we had predicted for this year, because we're coming I don't want to say we're coming out of the pandemic because we're not yet coming out of the pandemic, but we're coming out of this last wave of the pandemic with more activity in the industry than we anticipated. So generally speaking, these outlooks really do provide some good guidance. I think it would be fair to say, generally speaking, they certainly are, they trend the right way. This one, as I said, last year has been a tougher year for sure. But it certainly really helps you to understand. And we talk about, we develop an outlook on each province, what's happening in the oil and gas industry in each province and each sector. So again, really gives you some good guidance on where the industry is going, and very helpful to help understand where you can start planning for your career. So if you want to go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, like I won't go into a lot of these numbers because again, they show the trend, but things were improving when we put this out last spring, 2021 to 2023, but we have seen a larger improvement in all of the industry sectors. So our labor market outlook, as I mentioned, really focuses on exploration production, on the pipeline sector and the services sector. But we are looking at expanding it out in the coming years to include some of these other sectors that we talked about, renewables, clean tech, some of these other sectors that are really starting to grow in the energy industry. It's important to note that we're all getting quite excited about all of these new energy areas, but they're still relatively small in comparison to the number of employed in the traditional oil and gas services sector. So while we will look at it and adding those on to some of our outlooks, the numbers are still going to be smaller for a while until those sectors grow. And that will be a few years down the road yet, but we are looking to include those as well. So now if you want to go to the next slide. I just wanted to, before closing, tell you a little bit about a survey that was done by an organization called the Labour Market Information Council. If any of you are familiar with the Labour Market Information Council, it's relatively new. I want to say 3 or 4 years old. Our organization, myself in particular, we sit on an advisory council with the Labour Market Information Council, and they really look at labor market information across the country and in all sectors. So there's a lot of information on their website about labor market information outlooks for other industry sectors, not just ours, because ours is obviously focused on energy, but theirs is much broader. They also have a ton of studies on what's helpful in labor market information. So we're truly trying to understand what part of labor market information will you wanna zero in on, and what could help you particularly in your career planning. If you go on their website, you're going to find a lot of really good information. One study I just wanted to point out, because it really was done with high school students and post-secondary students, was that they did a survey of students, and 62% of the students did find that labor market information had helped them in their post-secondary education related decisions. But also of the 35 interviews they did with post-secondary students, they also found that a large number of those students were using labor market information to help in their career planning. So it certainly is being used by post-secondary students and high school students across the country. In that survey, they found that most post-secondary students said that they were most interested in the job outlook information over a 5-year period. So we found that interesting, because we felt that we feel too that that's probably a good time frame to be able to make to do some planning and make some decisions. And they also found that students really were looking for salary information and also the skills that are required for future work. So again, going back to our new website, we have a lot of that information on our website. I'm happy to answer any specific questions if you have any, but it's really worth sort of pursuing and digging down into some of that data and that information that's available to you. So with that, I'll pass it back to Astrid.
Thank you, Carol. One of the things that really leapt out at me in your presentation is the age-related attrition. That would be people retiring. That I think creates an enormous amount of opportunity for our students, and also for alumni currently working in the industry or looking to pivot into the industry. So it's fascinating. I always find it really interesting to look at what the data is saying about the industry. Erin, now our manager for career advancement services, Erin Boyle. I know you have some thoughts and some comments that you wanted to share with us, and then we'll go to questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So now that Carol and Nicholas have shared some insights into our labor market statistics and trends, how do you use this information to inform decisions about your careers? The trends discussed provides you with an insight as to what jobs are in demand now and into the future, which can steer you in the right direction when making a career change. But how to get to the career you want? Well, you can use other sources of labor market information to plan how to get there, essentially building you a roadmap. So Carol's provided us a great resource if you're interested in learning more about careers in energy. But if you're looking into moving into other sectors, Canada's National Occupation Codes, referred to as NOC codes, is a really good place to start. NOC codes are a national database of all occupation classifications and provide a full list of duties for each occupation, as well as the skills, education, and experience necessary to do the job. They also provide the variety of job titles commonly associated with each occupation, which can help you during your job search. Using NOC codes can help you determine what essential skills and education you need to move into a new role. We recommend looking at the NOC code for your most recent occupation or current occupation, and then comparing it to the NOC code of the job you'd like to move into, and identify similarities and gaps in your own experience. People often discover they already have many of the skills, education, and experience that we can transfer to a new career, but NOC codes can also help you determine if there are additional skills you need to develop or technical training you may need to take. Specifically, NOC code information is very useful to determine the education and certification required for entry, intermediate, or senior level positions within that occupation. Another great tool that's often overlooked is LinkedIn. You can use it to determine the type of experience you need to successfully transition into a career. While primarily used for networking, LinkedIn can also provide you with a glimpse into the background and experience that other people in your chosen career have. By viewing people's LinkedIn profile, you can get a snapshot of their career path and the types of experience and education that has led them to their current job. So we recommend that you find people who have the job you want to do and see how they got there. Besides looking at their profile, it's also a great opportunity to build your networking by reaching out to see if they'd be willing to share information about their own career journey. We call this an informational interview, and our resource section on My Career Hub has some great tips to help you with these career conversations. Don't forget, as SAIT alumni, you're able to access SAIT's career advancement services. So if you need assistance navigating NOC codes, LinkedIn, or other sources of labor market information we discussed today, you can book a career search techniques appointment and meet with a career advisor who can assist you with your research. Appointments can be booked through the Career Hub, and virtual appointments are available Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. As I mentioned, you may determine that you need to complete some additional training, such as a certificate to address a gap in your education. And SAIT's continuing education and professional studies offerings are a great place to start. They offer numerous courses and micro-credentials to help you upskill and prepare you for the career you want. As Nicholas mentioned, there are several real hot tech topics, or languages as the techies call them. And so checking out the SAIT's advancement would give you a good place to start to get that necessary training. In other cases, some of you may determine that it's just a matter of repositioning your existing skill set and experience to highlight the transferable skills you've identified. And that can be done through your resume, which we can also help you with. Again, you can book a resume review with a career advisor through My Career Hub. While changing careers and transitioning into a new job can be daunting, doing your research ahead of time can help you plan and put you on the path to success. And don't forget, career advancement services are here to help.
Thanks, Erin. That's fantastic. So I'm wondering if we're going to open it for questions now. Again, put your questions into the Q&A, and you can do so anonymously if you'd like to. I would like to start off with a couple of questions here. So Nicholas, in your presentation, one of the questions I have is, we've been trying to diversify Calgary for a very long time now. And I'm wondering if you can give us a bit of a sense on whether or not, like, I know we're talking about the tech jobs all the time, but how are we doing as far as getting to a more diversified actual economy across the board?
Thanks for that question. I think it's kind of twofold. One of it is recognizing that, we do have strong, what I call traditional industries in my presentation, right? And it's using the emergence of digital transformation to continually improve those traditional industries. So because tech overlays all sectors, it's not that we need to, get rid of agriculture and replace it with, a software company. It's how do we take these new skills and knowledge and applying it to a more traditional industry like agriculture, to improve on it, right? So if you think of farming and how a combine kind of drives up and down, rows to harvest the grain or whatnot, it's probably less complicated to automate that and have a self-driving combine than it is to have a self-driving car. So that's a great place to test some of these technologies, but also improve the efficiencies of it. We see drones being used for kind of scanning land plots or seeding fields and things like that. So these are all newer advancements in technology that we're applying to these stronger traditional industries. So it's not so much that we have to, go down this whole trend of diversification and it's going to be brand new things. It's how do we continue improving what we have, but also adding on other things. And, like Carol was talking about, it's not just oil and gas, it's not just one thing or another, it's energy and environment and all these other things, right? So it's the geothermal, it's the wind, the bio. There's a lot of other things in there as well that we're adding on. And I think we're seeing a lot of movement towards that. I talked about the $20 billion of digital transformation spend. You see the investments being made in our economy, both locally and internationally. People are really taking notice of Calgary and the businesses here. So I think we're definitely on the right path. And yeah, I'm very excited to see what's going to come in the next, 3 to 5 to 10 years from now.
Excellent, thank you. So Carol, on that note, when we're looking at the traditional industries of oil and gas, is what Nicholas is saying true for oil and gas as well? Is it the traditional jobs plus tech? Like, are we techifying or digitally leaping in the oil and gas jobs? Or I'm not quite sure how to say that, but do you know what I mean? Like, are we doing the same thing in oil and gas?
We most absolutely are. And it's across the board. The digital transformation of the oil and gas industry is equal to a lot of other industries. And what we're finding is that we're having to update career profiles on a regular basis because of the new technology skills that are being required, whether it's understanding new softwares, as Nicholas had mentioned, and applying them, or understanding and being able to use other new technologies. I mean, things are automating so quickly in the industry. The kinds of technologies that are being used even now compared to 5 years ago has dramatically changed and improved. Some of that has been because the industry is changing and needs to change very quickly, so are applying new technologies, but also there's the introduction of a blockchain, all of the kind of technologies we're seeing in other industries. So it's creating brand new occupations. In fact, we've developed some occupational profiles a few years back, well, not even last year, I guess, as we were developing them. Even the employers, we'd go to the employers and we'd say, well, what does that job look like? And they'd go, we actually really don't know yet because it's so new. So trying to help people understand what these new occupations are and what they're going to look like in the coming years is changing dramatically. So you're either creating new occupations, which we're seeing in the industry, or we're having to upskill our current workforce. And many companies are doing that across the board. You're having to upskill on these technologies. Absolutely.
So is it fair to say, Erin, I'm going to pick on you now. If I'm an alum, I'm a grad, I am working in a traditional industry or any of our industries, I'm 5 years in. Is it an automatic that I go and get some digital upgrading if I want to accelerate my career? Or how do I know what to get upgraded on if I wanted to change my career or accelerate it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the question that a lot of people have in mind. And even when we say digital transformation and upskill, what does that mean, right? You know, how do we define that? I think it's pretty safe to say one way or another, you will have to do that. It could be through professional development in your own career. And there are a ton of companies doing that. You know, as Carol just said, it's upskilling our existing employees as well. And sometimes you need to actually take advantage of that opportunity and push it for yourself. So, you know, staying on the pulse, I mentioned our continuing education and professional studies program. We also have the Advanced School for Digital Technology. They have a ton of programming. They have webinars, they have guest speakers, you know, keeping your pulse on the tech. You know, Nicholas talked about Live Tech, Love Life. That's another great resource to tap into to start trying to decipher some of these skills that you're going to need in the future. And I talk about LinkedIn a lot, and Astrid knows this because we've mentioned it in several different alumni magazines, but it is really a wealth of information that people don't utilize. It's more than just making those connections and saying, oh, I have 950 people connected. Start reading articles people are posting, start looking at the job ads that people are posting. That's going to give you a really good snapshot of what those skill sets are and what they're looking for. You know, people share all sorts of articles and predictions of what the future will look like. And I think all of us, our duty to have a successful career is to stay on the pulse of that. I mean, I'm in post-secondary and I consistently have to keep reading to see what other, you know, career services are doing, because that changes so much. And, you know, technology has impacted us. The fact that we're all here, 3 years ago, these events were purely in person. We wouldn't have even had a clue how to figure this out. And so tech is actually making a difference in all of our careers. And the sooner you can embrace it, the farther you're going to go.
And so this question is for whoever wants to answer it. When we're talking about digital upskilling and the digital transformation, is there a people side to that? Is it just that not everyone needs to be a coder? I don't think. Not everyone needs to learn a language, but there's sort of the people side and the softer skill side that I think is really important as well. And I'm wondering if any of you have a comment on that.
Yeah, I'll jump in first. In my day-to-day, I connect with a lot of the tech companies here in Calgary. And I know for a fact, one thing that always stands out is that demand for that soft skill aspect. So even in technical roles, I hear a lot from CEOs, co-founders, HR recruiters, whatnot. They say, like, look, we don't have issues finding people with the skills. That's not the problem. You know, on paper, they're great. They have the technical skills, but then we interview them. It's not a culture fit. They don't know how to give a presentation. They don't know how to sell the product, right? Different things like that. So it is important, even if you are going for technical roles, to practice those soft skill aspects, you know, and showcase them through involvement on campus, through volunteer opportunities, you know, different things like that. But when we speak about tech, and that's why I split the difference of the 46,000 technical and the 78,000 non-technical, but all those people still work in tech. The importance there is, you know, yes, we also need those people who are very strong in sales, strong in marketing, strong in accounting, strong in HR. There's tons of other, like at the end of the day, these are still businesses and you need all different kinds of roles to function there. So there is lots of opportunity. You don't have to go become a software engineer by any means. It's just very in demand. So if you want a job quickly, that's a good path to go. But, you know, if you have passions in other areas, you know, become strong in those areas as well. But with the kind of the tech lens of it, right? So being able to speak the terminology, understand when people say things like SQL, knowing that's a language or what that stands for. And, you know, is that more a data science thing or something else? Like just understanding that so that you're able to succeed in those areas. Yeah, I think those are really important to have.
And I'll just add to say, you know, absolutely the soft skills, or as we refer to them, the transferable skills are incredibly important, because you can have the tech skills. If you can't communicate that you have those skills, or you can't collaborate to see where those skills are needed to improve a process or improve a product, then it's not going to do you any good. You know, what we find a lot when we see either our current students or alumni, such as yourselves, they don't realize that they have those skill sets. And so really it's taking a look at your post-secondary experience and the experience you have in your jobs right now, and really pinpointing that and being able to showcase it. So as Nicholas said, it's great if you can volunteer, but then talk about that in an interview, or talk about it on in your resume, or my favorite, LinkedIn. That's how you can do that, showcasing pieces of it. And if you're lacking in some of that, there's a multitude of opportunities to be able to gain some of that skill set.
Excellent, thank you. I just want to remind participants, you can insert your questions into the Q&A, and we're happy to answer them. I want to just pop back to Carol now. So going from a traditional oil and gas job, and we're looking at expanding to renewable energy and I'm assuming LNG and hydrogen and all of these things that will be coming down the pike. Is it, I guess I'm trying to ask, can an oil and gas worker in many cases just transition over to renewable? Is that a clean, I can go, I was doing this in oil and gas and now I have an equivalent job in renewables, or is there any mapping of that?
Actually, yeah, in some cases that might be the case. It might be an easy transition. In others, not so much. And one of the tools we do have on our website that we've created actually does exactly that. It will map for you what the current occupation is and what the skills gaps are that you're going to need to fill. Sometimes, to Erin's point, sometimes it may be a short 6-month program that you just need to take. Sometimes it's much longer, a year or two, but we do provide that mapping, and it gives you an indication of, if you really would like to do this, you can absolutely do it, but here's what you need to do to accomplish that. If you want a short-term turnaround to be able to move into the sector, this is what you might be looking at instead. So there certainly is a lot of that mapping, and some industries do hold that, hold much more promise than others in terms of certain occupations. There's more than just the skills, though. You also have to measure the corporate culture, the kind of environment you're working in. So those are also really important because it's a very different culture to move over into a tech company from a traditional sort of hierarchical larger oil and gas company. So really part of it is also evaluating more than just the transferable skills, but also all of those other areas as well.
Excellent, thank you. I don't have any questions in the queue, so I'm just going to ask a couple more and then we'll wrap it up here. And I have a question, pretty much the same question for all three of you, but I'm going to start with Nicholas. If you were 5 years younger and coming to Calgary, what would you do? What would you do for a career path? What would you be thinking about?
That's an interesting question. I think even within 5 years, and if we all look back, Calgary was a very different place. The industry was very different. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. But kind of in hindsight, seeing where things have gone now. So I did a business degree. That's kind of my background, kind of focused in on HR and psychology. I definitely would have supplemented that with some kind of technical skill. I don't know if I would have gone straight into like a computer science major or anything like that, but I definitely would have, maybe done some upskilling, done a boot camp, something like that. I mean, SAIT's Digital Transformation Hub didn't exist back then. So, 5 years ago, that wasn't an option, right? So just in this short period of time, you can see how fast things have moved and developed. But yeah, I really wish I picked up some of those tech skills, because even in my day-to-day job, there are so many times where I'm like, man, I really wish I knew some Python so I could automate this script so I don't have to sit here and, write this whole list out. So even in regular type roles, there is that ability to integrate tech into it to make things more efficient. So yeah, that's something I really wish I picked up on the side. I don't think it would have been a core focus of mine. I do love what I do, but definitely to supplement some of that and having some of that tech skill would have been helpful. But it's not too late. I might still pick that up.
Thank you. Carol, my friend, if you were to do it all over again, what would you look at for a career trajectory here in Calgary?
Well, that's such a fascinating question, because I've been fortunate enough to have a wonderful career, and I have moved around a bit. My background also was actually in communications, and it still is. So I certainly have been focused on all those soft skills we talked about earlier. But I also spent a lot of time focused on the oil and gas industry, mostly because that is a key industry in Calgary. So I kind of fell into sort of the big industry here. At the risk of sounding like I'm saying the same thing as Nicholas, I think the tech skills are probably, all of us would agree, is pretty key. I mean, we're all learning how to use Zoom now, I mean, if and as joking as that is, if this is just one small technology, that communications technology that we're using, there's so many others, but it is bigger than that. My children are in tech fields now, and I really value the fact that that's where the world is going. So in hindsight, looking back, would I be really good at it? I don't know, because my bent tends to be not technical background, but I think it would really serve me well to have had acquired some of those technical skills, whatever they might be, some just more than what I've had over the years, for sure.
Thank you. Erin, I'm going to pick on you now. What would you do differently, or would you do anything differently?
I think for me, I would have got to post-secondary as a career sooner. So I, similar to Carol, Nicholas, have a communications background, transferred that to human resources, and then ended up at SAIT. And I ended up SAIT honestly because I was in a course through continuing education and professional studies, and my instructor was also worked in the HR department here at SAIT and convinced me to come on board. HR, as we all know, has some ups and some downs. I did work with the employee services group at SAIT for 10 years and then needed to transition. We've gone through booms and we've gone through busts, and it hits post-secondary pretty hard. And so I wanted a bit of a change, and lo and behold, I was able to take my HR experience and I built my job. So we didn't have a career advancement services department, and I recognized that was lacking. And so, in my time as HR and in my time as an HR advisor to many of our deans and directors, I was able to kind of advocate that we need to help our students. We need to actually help our students and alumni navigate careers, because it's not easy, and it needed to be more than just here's how you write a resume. So I was very, very fortunate because I knew all about HR classifications and position descriptions. I wrote my job, I wrote the job of my team, and I made a pitch, and here we are. So I think, to answer your question, I wish I had done that a bit sooner. Post-secondary is never going to go anywhere, and it's an often overlooked field. But if we think about it, we're a little mini city here at SAIT. So we have financial people, we have tech people, big time, because all of the tech that we're using in our programs, whether it's in, the actual labs or whether it's us communicating, we need to have really high tech. We probably have some people that Carol would have worked with previously in oil and gas now instructing, so post-secondary is often overlooked, but it's not going anywhere. And we can see that, if there needs to be upskilling and changing careers, there needs to be people teaching that. And so, for those of you who aren't sure and have some passions in terms of things, if you like HR, come be HR for SAIT. If you like event planning, come do event planning for SAIT. And really it's looking at what you do well, but thinking outside of that box, because we get really stuck in the traditional places of the occupation. And if you have an opportunity like myself to kind of design your own job and they actually listen to you, then even better. But to keep those choices open, I think would be my advice.
Thank you. I'm going to pitch in what I would have done differently is I would have come to Calgary much, much sooner than I did. So that is my one regret. I didn't come here earlier. I'd like to thank you, Carol, Nicholas, and Erin for joining me today. To all of you who joined us, thank you for attending and participating in the webinar this evening. If you haven't heard, SAIT's 5th annual Giving Day is fast approaching. It'll take place on October the 5th, so please keep an eye on social media for your chance to support student success. And if you have any other questions regarding alumni career support, or if there's something you'd love to see discussed throughout the What Works series, please email us at alumni@sait.ca. Have a great night and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.